Today's episode is going to be very interesting, we will say, because we are talking about season 5, which is the final season of You on Netflix, based on the Caroline Kepnes book series. Season 5 does not actually have a corresponding book, at least not at the moment. Last season, which is season 4, where we also had some interesting points of view, had a book but did not follow the book. So we are just going to talk about the show itself and what we thought about it, including what we thought about Joe, what we thought about the ending, these Lockwoods and the 1%, and what we thought about Bronte slash Louise. Did we like any of them? Stay tuned and find out. This is the Nerdy Romantics Podcast, and I'm your host, Y.M. Nelson. Okay, ladies, I am so happy to have with me today Marcie, Dana, and Staci, recurring guests. How y'all doing today?
Doing good.
Doing fine.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm doing great as well, although it is ridiculously hot here, which is making me a little bit miserable, which is kind of how I felt about this last season of You. So let's all go around and tell us how you felt going into this, especially knowing what happened in season 4. How did you feel? And then we'll get into characters and stuff like that. Staci, you're in my first box over here. So sorry. How did you feel going into this? And was it just because we had watched all these seasons, that's why you watched it?
Pretty much that was it. Just because that we watched so many of the seasons, I was like, it's the last one. So I'm going over the finish line. I'm going to continue on watching it. But overall, I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that I had a visitor visiting me for this past week to watch the first episodes with me, I don't know if I could have been finished it at all. The left out on the last season, like, come on. It was like impossible white man syndrome. It was just how he could get away with all of that in the last season. And just because it's, well, I mean, maybe you can because his wife was rich now at that point to do all the stuff that, cover up the crimes that she knew of. But this whole season was like a lot of, I mean, Marcie can tell you what we were doing. It's like, come on. And that was the thing you were saying constantly was, come on. Nobody sees that. Why are you going to do that? It was just unbelievable. And it was just in that realm of, this cannot be real. And that's like, put on the cap. I mean, we already seen seasons 1 through 4. Well, all you have to do is put on the cap, and then you don't know who Joe is, and that's it. And
Right.
and I mean, I don't want to go and tell too much of it or whatever, but everything he did is like, just now before we got on this call, y'all say, oh, you got someone's at your front door because you can hear a ring. And don't tell me that none of these houses he's been going to, nobody has a ring.
Not a one.
None of
Right.
Not a
some
one.
sort of, device to watch. Like, oh, this is which one? The one house he went to, and it says, oh, it's cut. I was like, what?
Right.
Where can you go nowadays where, especially in somebody's neighborhood or someone's around a person's house, and ain't nobody has something to see you walking in and out?
And even doors and windows unlocked. We had examples of that too. And I'm like, really? We still doing that?
Right.
Who knew?
It is just the amount of stuff he was doing is like, it's not even like he was trained to be a ninja for the last 10 years. He was just a regular
Right.
guy living in New York for all his life and then in California.
Right.
I mean, he had no special training. He wasn't trained under a master. He was just a regular guy, just a regular Joe. And a regular Joe can do all that. I mean,
Right.
it was just so much to not believe on what he
Yeah.
was doing. And I'm not even
So
going to go into anything else for the women because we can wait till later. I'll let somebody else talk for now.
So,
But
Marcy, what about you? What did you think going into this? And yeah, how did you feel about it?
going into this, I think I was also mostly watching because it was the last season. We knew we were going to talk about it, and therefore, I wanted to participate. I don't. I'm not even gonna say I had high hopes, but I thought that they were gonna bring it. That this was gonna be like, I don't watch trailers in general because sometimes I feel like the trailer gives away the best parts. But I had seen like headlines and stuff, so there was some impression that this was gonna be thrilling, groundbreaking, like something. It wasn't, and so I thought that. But honestly, as the visitor who was sitting on the couch yelling, "I'm sick of everybody. Come on now." I'm sick of her. I'm sick of her. I'm sick of him. I'm sick of her. Like I feel like at some point, no one was likable in any way, and the story was so fantastical at some point because to Stacey's point, this man is committing these levels of crimes with a hat as his one piece of cover.
Right.
He's not even paying attention to, and gloves, maybe gloves, okay? And somehow we're supposed to believe that over the course of all of these shenanigans that there was no one who could figure out that this was him. It just got outrageously ridiculous by the end. And don't get me started on what I feel was an excellent performance in a trash show because I feel like she did the best she could with the twindom, and I really feel like if it had been in a
Yes.
better vessel, she would have deserved something. This was not that vessel, and so I feel like she's gonna be overlooked. But in general,
Yes.
I feel like she had some really great scenes in a really trash season, and if I were her, I would be mad that it didn't end somewhere after me. Which brings me to my second point, which is I think it should have been 8 episodes long instead of 10. Because I also feel like they dragged it out and then we got to the end and the best part was the epilogue. Is that what you want me
Okay.
to say? Is that where I'm supposed to stop for now?
Yeah, let's stop there for now
Okay.
because we will talk about Amanda Camp, who
Yeah.
played Reagan and Maddie. She was awesome. I agree. And I do want to get back to why you think it should have been 8 episodes. I really want to know that.
Okay.
But let's Dana, let's get your first impressions or how you felt going into this and
Sure. So
ultimately how you felt coming out.
I actually watched this because Yvonne reminded me it was actually coming on. I forgot completely about this show altogether.
Yep.
Now I have to say that I was a Joe person. I read You before Netflix movie was a thing. I read the
Mhm.
book, actually listened to the audio, and I think we said before like a past thing. That's kind of how I had an intimate connection through the audio with Joe that way and his voice and everything. So I kind of felt some way about him. Anyway, it was funny because when I went to go start this season, I was like, what is going on? I'm so confused. And that's when I realized I never finished last season. So I'm sure I said this on a podcast, but I didn't actually finish watching last season. I did not like it.
I think you
Like,
did say
You
that.
did say that.
so Joe went completely off the rails. So I thought season four was crap. So I had to actually go back and watch season four and finish it so that I could get into season five. And I think I dare say I don't think we're gonna find anybody who really disagrees with the overall feeling that most of us had in that this it didn't work. Season five was, I hate to say trash, but that's what I'm gonna say. It wasn't good. But I feel for me it fell off in four. The way we ended four and him, having this whole mental crisis and it not being him, and then he jumping off the bridge and like to come back from that, I would have known. there was no way you were going to make it good. It kind of has my whole wrap up in this is that thing that like they did with Roseanne when she won all the money and then it was a dream. We don't like stuff like that. I don't think people in general like stuff like that. Sometimes it feels lazy to me from a writing standpoint. It's like when you run out of ideas, but you want to wrap it up and make it nice. Don't do that. I would rather like a Sopranos ending. Just if you don't have anything else to say without just taking it in a whole direction it doesn't need to go, just stop it. And I feel like they should have at season three. I like if we had never seen Joe again, I would have been fine. But once they did four, and then definitely I know we'll talk about more with five. I was over it, and everybody knows because I think I told y'all I fell asleep on like episode five, so I had to go and rewatch some of that too. And to me, to fall asleep on a show that initially I really loved and had looked forward to it after reading the books just kind of speaks to how I was feeling. But season five was a repeat of other seasons, just I don't know, just in a ridiculous like it was the same old same. Boring, tired. That's how
Mm.
I felt.
So it's interesting that you say you fell asleep on it, right? Because this show is supposed to be thrilling and it does have some action, but the action is supposed to keep you
No, only action was the
activated.
drool coming out of my mouth.
Oh
No.
my gosh. Well, I mean, I can't. I'm just going to echo what everybody else said. The reason why wanted to go into this season five because we had already done all four seasons. That's
Hmm.
all.
Yep.
I had,
Need to
I
complete it.
actually, right, exactly. I need to feel some completion with this, and I needed to see how Joe was going to end up. Like Dana, I had read the book first, and like Dana, I love the book. I love that first book. The first book was great. I read the second book. It was not as good as the first book, but still kind of on point. However, the second season did not match the second book. And when I saw that happening, I said, this show is going to go a little bit off the rails for me. It's going to end up being like
Hmm.
a true blood kind of thing, I think, for me, where I liked the books and I liked where they were going with the books, and the TV show was going a different way, and I didn't like it as
Yeah.
much. But when book 3 came out and season 3 came out, and they were Marianne was a totally kind of different person. When stuff was just not coming together well, I said, oh no, this is not going to end up, doing what I thought it was going to do. And two, the book kind of came out either like right at the time that the show came out or right after. So I was like, well, she's just she's not trying to do anything with the show necessarily to keep them married. She's gonna go her own way with the books. But like I said, season 5, there's no book, there's nothing there. It's just season 5. And I think when I was going in, I was expecting from season 5, I was expecting it to up the ante just a little bit more because now he's part of the 1%, and the 1% we know get away with a lot of stuff. That's
Clearly,
all
you
we
can
gonna
walk into
say.
the 1%'s house in a hat and kidnap someone, run out on the lawn, and
That right.
no one, nothing will flag. Not
Everybody,
a
all your
motion
friends, everybody who
sensor.
knows you dying all around you, and you walk
Exactly.
Right.
in
And
the
it's
Nobody's
street.
gonna be like,
all
hey,
good.
what's weird?
It's all good.
Clearly.
The 1%, they don't go to jail for things like murder. They
Mm,
go to jail for things like mail fraud or tax evasion. But what I saw from Joe, and so let's talk about the Joe character and what we thought, because I totally agree with Stacy in the fact that this is mediocre white man, like
yes.
all over the place. I
Yeah.
mean,
Impossible white
you
man.
right, exactly. Exactly. Just all over the place. Like he could do whatever he wants to do, and evidently people are looking the other way, number one. But what got me even more, because I liked this about Joe. Joe in the beginning was cunning. He was kind of like, I'm going to do these, little things. And yes, he would always make a mistake. That was his thing. Every season, he would make a slight mistake. And it usually had to do with the cage. But he would always make a one little, slight mistake that would actually, make the conflict kind of go out of control. But in the beginning, he saw things and he was a little more cunning than what he was in season 5. I'm like,
Mhm.
how did you not know that this was the other twin? I mean, I saw it at dinner the way Maddie was looking at Reagan's husband. I mean, why didn't Joe clock that? The biggest thing was, why didn't he clock that Bronte was playing him? Like, what?
And I'm gonna be honest, it was hard to follow her. She looked crazy most of the show. It was hard to tell.
She was channeling Janine.
She did.
which
She,
I
she,
which I enjoy.
right.
I should
And,
have watched
and
that.
so there was a lot of that. But I think maybe that was the part of the 1% where he had gotten comfortable getting away with stuff, and I think he thought he could continue. But yeah, I think you're right. He fell off. He fell off everywhere. Like he was. It was. But even in the making of the mistakes, he was still like so hubris and so.
But some of the mistakes some of the stuff he was doing, like, okay, when he comes out of window, he falls. Just
Mhm.
I'm too old for this, or something he was saying. And I was
Right.
like, we're too old for this. I mean, it's just
Right.
like that's like, oh, that's what the major thing was. Like, no, it's not you falling, get into the coming in the window. It's the fact that no one clocked you coming into this window
Mhm.
or going through this door or anything like that. And then about the Bronte thing, how he didn't see that. I think part of the reason he couldn't see that was because he had fallen out of love of what was his
Mhm.
wife's name?
Rose.
Um,
Kate.
No,
Oh,
Kate.
love or
Kate.
Kate?
Kate.
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 Yeah,
Kate.
Kate.
Kate is his wife.
And
His current wife.
His best,
current
Yeah.
yeah.
wife.
Right.
I mean,
Because
Right.
we
Love
were
was his
talking
other wife. Yeah.
like Marcie and I were talking about talking about Joe, and it was like Joe is a villain who thinks he's a hero,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
he doesn't want to be in love. He just likes falling in love, and so once he has it or thinks he has it,
Mhm.
it's like, this is not what I want. He'll pick it apart because what he wants is the feeling of falling in love with someone.
Mhm.
He doesn't really want anybody who actually somewhat understands him, or at least can forgive him for what he is. Because Kate was the closest to Love. No, Love was the first one who was like that for him.
Right.
And as soon as he found out her crazy matched his crazy, he was like,
He
I got
wanted.
to get out.
He wants a
Right.
Uh,
damsel. He
he
wants a
wants the damsel.
damsel. And as soon
Yes.
as the person is no longer a damsel, then he's done. So when Kate was like, I don't need you to save me anymore. Now, do I blame her for asking him to kill in the first place? Yes, because we wouldn't be here. We
Yes.
probably wouldn't have suffered through all that if she had just been like, no, Joe, I
She
got
opened
this. But
Pandora's box.
she was like, here, go back to what you do best. And then she thought she could put him back in the box. But by then he was like, hey, I like this feeling.
But do you think Kate is somebody who would really ask somebody to kill for her in the first? I
I
felt
think
that
she.
was
I mean, I don't
weird.
think she would
Yes.
kill. She didn't
Yeah, because she
ask him,
had
but she
before.
kind of implied to
Oh,
get him
she
to do
knew
it.
what was
So
gonna
she knew
happen.
she was gonna what she was doing, and she. The only thing is that she at least regretted kind of what she did because she didn't
Hmm.
want to be like her father, basically.
Right.
But
That right.
she realized that by having that, like a uncle, person that got killed, she was following her father's footsteps, even though it's like for the greater good, of
Hmm.
keeping her in power. She was still going into her father's vision of what she should be. And so
I
at
just
least
thought that
she
was
felt,
weird because I
I
felt
mean,
like she wouldn't do that. Like to me, like no more so than I would be like, yeah, tell somebody to hit somebody else.
what,
Like I wouldn't do
but
that,
to
and
be
I would.
remember that that last season, she did do stuff for her father. Like
Hmm.
kids got cancer because of what she did.
But see,
Right.
I felt that was different because wasn't she young when she did that,
Yeah, she didn't know.
and she didn't know. So I felt like that was a little bit. This is murder, straight up in your face murder. Hey, go kill my uncle, whatever.
But I think
Like
again, I mean, I think her father had to see something in because she was like you said, his favorite, and thought that he was going to shoot. So there was something. There must have been something in that he saw, because he had other children, and he, who was, was it Reagan, was willing to follow in his footsteps, but he didn't think she had the killer instinct, and I think he saw that Kate did have the killer instinct, but she
Mhm.
just didn't want to use it, and she did in that point, that one part of it. But she realized that she does have a killer instinct. But she was trying to control it by not sicking Joe other people. Because I think as soon as she did that, she realized she did open the Pandora's box by doing that. And she's like, oh crap, reel
Mhm.
him back in, but it's too late at that point.
Yeah.
Well, I have some thoughts on Kate, but I'll speak to Joe for one brief
Okay.
second
Yeah.
or
Tell
whatever.
us what you think about
So it's
Joe.
funny. So what you mentioned earlier is, I think, was the biggest draw and the biggest thing about Joe. Joe was an ordinary. He was just as ordinary as a sheet of paper. That
Mhm.
was the whole thing with him. But you're right. He was cunning. Like, he didn't look particularly special. He didn't have a lot of money. There was nothing. I mean, you would, like, if Joe walked into a room, we would not have paid him any attention. Let's just be honest. He was,
Mhm.
whatever. But somebody said, and I read this on Reddit, and it made me pause. And they were like, all of us are now mad with Joe, and we think he's stupid and idiot and all this stuff. But they're like, he was always that way. And I was like, I on one hand, I understand what you're saying, because he was always ordinary and whatever. But I think it goes back to what you were saying, Stacy, and I think we've all been saying is, for some reason, the circumstances, everything just seemed to kind of go his way in this, you know, dumb
Mhm.
stuff was happening to make it way too easy for him. And I do agree with you, Yvonne, that I think while he may have been ordinary, in general, because he wasn't saying anything special to these girls to make him, in my mind, fall in love and do all this other stuff. But I think he was cunning. I think maybe he made them feel safe. But I think it was just, I don't know. I felt like, and maybe, he got one over on me. I don't know. But in those first books, for sure, like, he was kind of smooth with it. You've seen those
Yeah.
guys that look
Mhm.
like a shoe, but there's something about it,
But I
whatever.
think that's the case. He was in the first few seasons, but that's what we saw. But after time, you start to realize there ain't nothing special about him. I
No,
mean,
no, no.
and I think maybe, at the beginning of it, when we first saw the first season, in the second season, his only special thing to me was that he was just really observant, and he gave
Yeah.
people what they wanted. And then by the third, fourth, fifth season, we know that's what he's doing. So it doesn't surprise us, and it doesn't seem as smooth. It's like we see you do the same thing. It's
Over
like
and
you
over.
over and over again. If you
Mhm.
see a charlatan and you've seen it initially, like, oh my gosh, he's wow, she or he or whatever, so wonderful. And then after you've been seeing them do that, scam person after person after person after person, and you've been seeing it from a distance, you're like, oh yeah,
Yeah. Then
I
I
see the
see it.
scam now, and
Right.
it doesn't, and you don't see that charisma anymore. You just see the scam.
Yep.
And I
Yeah.
think that's what him, like with him, the stuff he was doing for us, we couldn't see it because we've seen him scamming women all, 4 or 5, 4 seasons. So when Bronte comes along, I think that is part of the reason we've seen him do this. He has the same
Exact same.
playbook,
Oh
Yep.
my
and we're
gosh.
seeing the playbook and like, can't you see this? Can't don't you see this playbook? And
Yep.
that's I had to have actually, kind of forgive Bronte a little bit once I thought about she doesn't see him as the idiot. I mean, I see him as what we see him as a scam artist from all that point. She doesn't see him at this point, and like I said, she's needy, kind of like I said, Beck. Though she was kind of needy because
Mhm.
she was. She gave up stuff to be with her, to take care of her mother, and she just had that one, special friend with Beck, and
Mhm.
that kind of thing. And I just think that she had, was it a Stockholm syndrome kind of by being, and she was living a lie too. She had to live
Mhm.
I'm Bronte, not Louise, and she
Right.
kind of fell into her own scam with him.
Yeah, she was definitely enamored, and I think that was what he was. He was like a glimmer man, right? So, but he could only keep up that facade for so long, and so I think that she was susceptible. He finds people, gravitates to people, again, the damsel, who are susceptible to that type of love bombing shenanigans, and then I think, and then there were some traumatic things that happened, and then he really did look like a hero for a minute. I think to your point, you do have to forgive her some of
Some
some
of
of
it.
that, but
Mm.
uh, uh, but also,
If I
he
forgive
wasn't that
her,
good a he wasn't that good a person. Like
if
he
I
didn't come.
forgive her, it's
Mhm.
not her. I guess I would forgive her because I don't. What I think was not her fault. I think it was more about how, for me, this show was produced. Because I'm getting conflicting information. On one hand,
Uh-huh.
you want her to seem like she doesn't know any better. She's just falling for Joe. But the
Mhm.
way y'all are casting her and shining light on her, she's always suspicious. Everything she does, y'all made her seem like she was suspicious, like she was doing something. I was waiting
Right.
for the ball to drop. So
I
to me,
s-
I had a hard time trying to see her as a really falling for Joe and really being innocent because I
Right.
thought she was
I thought she
suspicious
was
the
a
whole
plant.
time.
I
Like me
thought she was a
too.
plant too. And so I felt validated at the end in some ways because I did feel validated at the end because you could always tell that she was waffling, right? Because one minute she wanted to know what he did to Bex, and then one minute she was like, "No, I love you." And then one minute she was like, "He's a murderer." And then she's like, "No, he saved me." You could tell that she was always vacillating in this space. And when I think the best part was that she was a double plant, right? So she was a plant for the incel group, and then she turned around and it turns out that she was really who she originally was before she met the incel group, which is someone who was just looking for justice for a friend, right? So she had some complexity to her. Her decisions made me annoyed with her. I was sick of everybody. By episode 5, I was sick of everybody.
Did you really think her and Beck were friends, or was she kind of stuck?
No, I think she was.
No, they were not
I
friends.
don't think they
Speaking
were.
as a college professor, no,
Okay,
they were
but
not.
seeking for someone she admired, whatever you want to call it. She was seeking justice for
I think she
someone
idolized her, kind of
she
a
she
thing.
Yes,
admired, idolized,
I
whatever.
believe.
She was
I
seeking
believe that
justice for
too.
someone who was gone. So I think that was probably one of the better things, but still all her wide-eyed hoodooisms, just it all started to get on my nerves between her and him and Maddie, the Dizzy twin, and it was too many. It was just too many.
It was too much.
It
It was
was too
absolutely too
much. It
much.
was
It was
Yeah.
so
too much for
they
me
wanted me
watching.
to believe so much. They wanted me to deal with so much. They wanted
And him
they
being a father to a kid,
right
all
to
of
the
this,
kid,
it was
and then all
too
of a
many
sudden,
things going on.
Henry means so much to me, but I'm shacking up with the girl upstairs and barely going home, and I was gone so long. In fact, she managed to steal my child and take him to another country. Like, how good were you at this fatherhood thing? She got away with a whole child. They wanted me to believe a lot that the storyline did not support, and they wanted me to suspend my actual logic and reason and go along with this storyline for a very long time. And I think you're right because again, when he broke in to Maddie's to no
To the office building.
to
How
the
do you
to
get
the
into
to,
whole
to the
office building?
office building, the whole office building, there was no camera, no motion sensor. We got a security guard at the front desk.
That
What are you talking about? And then he broke
And
into the house,
It's a New York high rise
a New York
post
high
nine
rise,
eleven.
and
Like, are
I'm
then
you
just
kidding
mad he
me?
walks around with the hat. Like Stacey,
like that,
he
like
didn't
nobody
even
gonna
try
know.
to
Yes.
disguise nothing.
Not
Then we're
even
at the police.
glasses, just
Then
a
we're
hat.
right. Then we're at the gas station, and he gonna try to pull the hat down low, and that's going. And then all of a sudden, no one gonna see. Sir, you are not invisible. This is not the
it's a magic
invisibility
hat.
cloak from Harry Potter, sir. We can see you, and these are shenanigans. And the fact that he walked in that woman's house on an estate, and there was nothing else except two security guards. You telling me for an entire estate, you just got two people at the door, and you gonna let them both go to lunch at the same time? These are shenanigans. I was tired. And not only that, but it dragged out. Like I don't know if they were trying to give me some gravitas about the decisions people were making and about what was happening, but I really feel like we could have condensed some of that into 8 episodes. We could have moved the pace a little quicker. We could have cut out some of the back and forth. You need to tell the police. I'm not going to the police. When she said that to Teddy the first time, why did we have that same conversation again where she said she wasn't going to the police? We know she's not going. Why do we have to watch her Kate sit in places, contemplating life? We couldn't have just done that in a short. No, we had a whole montage of watching her sip wine. I was like, can we speed this up? Because then we get to the last episode, and that was the longest fight scene that was longer than Kickboxer. Like it was longer than Avengers Endgame. It was
Right. I was gonna
longer.
say Avengers Endgame.
And Kate
We
should have stayed dead. Like I
and Kate
cannot
should have stayed
believe
dead.
that all that smoke inhalation and
Impossible
everything.
White Woman.
E-
Exactly. I guess that's
Everybody survived, girl. Everybody
just
survived.
What's
Maddie
the first?
survived.
Oh no.
I was like, so
I
everybody
was
made
waiting for
it.
Peach to come back and
Right. I
back.
was like,
Right.
this is ridiculous. And when they had that montage scene and it looked like she saw her, I said, if she is really alive, I'm done. I'm done with this whole thing and I'm throwing this device. I cannot do it anymore. It was the level of disbelief they wanted me to suspend. That ride through the country in episode 10 could have been 5 minutes. Why did we have to watch them stop twice? Why did we have to watch her? I mean, don't get me wrong, the part where she was like, it could be this easy. I mean, there were great elements of filmmaking, but they were embedded in all of the muck and to a point where it was hard to appreciate them because they were so few and far between. That was the longest season ever. We could have probably skipped from episode 5 to 8, and 6 and 7 would have just been fine. We still would have understood everything that was happening. Like there was not enough difference. It was just too much. They wanted too much from me, and then they gave me nothing. I
I
mean,
think we could have skipped the season. I'm
I mean
not
the whole
sure that we
sure.
needed anything out of the
Yeah.
season at all because I don't think even killing Joe, it didn't feel satisfying in any way, shape, or form to me. And I don't feel like it was. I really
Right.
just didn't feel like it was necessary. But I want to talk about Kate for a second
Okay.
because I didn't like her. So I know
Me.
earlier we were, Kate. She's somebody who wants to play the game, but
Hmm.
she, she wants to be big and bad, but she's not. And I felt like all the little and I got tired of seeing that because she's like, I can handle it. I'll handle it. Clear, you can't. You haven't
Clearly
handled
you didn't.
anything. So I
Clearly you
don't.
didn't.
And so when you were talking about her father saw something in her, other than being a scapegoat, I don't know what he would see in her because I
Well,
didn't feel
think
like she was strong at all.
I think she could be. I think what she was doing was dialing everything back to be the good person, what she
Hmm.
thought was a good person.
Hmm.
Like I think like we saw a glimpse of it when she kind of sick Joe on that of
Hmm.
her like an uncle person, whoever that guy, whatever his
Hmm.
guy's name is. We
Uncle
saw that.
Bob.
Uncle
Uncle
Bob.
Bob.
Hmm.
We kind of saw that she could do it, but she she was trying to do it everything after that the clean way. So she kept telling Joe, I can handle it," because she was trying to handle it without getting anything else dirty. And I think
Yeah.
if if she handled it like she was taught, like her father was taught, was going that route, we could have seen that. But I don't. I think she was trying not. She was trying to do it as clean as possible, without getting anyone hurt, without getting anybody. That's what she was trying to do. And I think their brother, that half brother, well, they all have siblings, but the brother who, well, the only
Teddy.
brother there, the
That
Teddy,
was Teddy.
when he was like brought it to you, like, well, you might can get out here clean, but I wouldn't. And I just thought that at least that was kind of realistic, that she had to break it
Yeah.
down to her that you can do all this stuff and you don't want to, have Joe have them know what Joe is, do that because it's going to taint the stuff that you're trying to do. But by involving me, I will be tainted even if you walk away. And I think what I said, when you say like she's strong, I think she can be, but she was trying to be good and strong by not breaking laws. But at this point, everybody around her was breaking laws, so it didn't seem like she was actually doing anything. It was like ineffectual because of the fact that everybody else was willing to break the. Joe was most definitely, but everybody else was willing to backstab and do all that, and she was not trying to do that. So that means I don't think that she was particularly weak. I think that what she was trying to do was ineffective with all the other stuff that was happening. It was too
She
late at
felt
that
like
point. Yeah.
filler. Like
Hmm.
when we would go to her scenes, she could have been going blah blah blah, and I
Well,
would have
yeah,
gotten
she
the
was
same thing
filler,
out of her for
Hmm.
that.
but we
Cause
had to have her for a filler just for the fact that none of that stuff could have been accomplished without somebody having some money. Because he should have been in jail.
Right.
Last season he should have been in jail.
Well, also, none of that could have been accomplished without somebody having some money and somebody having a little semblance of right and wrong. Because just like what you're saying, Stacy, I agree. She has the killer instinct, which is why she was so susceptible to her dad's influence. But she also has somewhat of a moral compass, which none of these other people seem to really have, except maybe Maddie. But Maddie is kind of,
Right.
she's drawn by actual love, or what we think is the closest thing to come to love
Okay.
for these people.
Look at those
But
morals. Sleeping
Actually,
with her.
Teddy was
Her sis
Teddy
was
right,
fucking
Teddy
great
but
morals.
that's what I'm
Teddy, yeah,
saying.
Teddy
And
was
Teddy,
actually the only one with a real moral compass because he
exactly.
said to her,
And he was in a
"You,
position
I don't
not
want to
to
do this."
do anything.
Hmm.
Kate is the only one that's kind of in a position to
Okay.
do something that has somewhat
Yeah.
of a moral compass. But it also ultimately, let's be honest, ultimately against all these other people doing all these crazy shenanigans, which we're watching to see the train wreck, she is bored and filler.
She
That's why she
was
seems that way.
born.
But we don't necessarily see the struggle that I think that should have actually been there. We're not really seeing that from her because she's trying to say, "Well, I have it, I have," and I think that's why we have those scenes of her just sitting there looking, because that's supposed to, we're
Okay.
supposed to be seeing the struggle. I think.
Oh,
I just don't think we. I just don't think it was done very well,
it
to be
wasn't
honest.
done very well. No.
And we're going to talk about the ending, but now that we're talking about Kate, but we're going to talk about the ending. But I agree with the what was said before about the ending, with her being in that place that's on fire and she barely has any scarring on her,
Well, she
that
got some on her arms. It's
on
probably
her
some on her
arms,
body
but
we
that's,
just didn't see, but
yeah.
I don't know.
But she
And then,
survived it,
and
so
then
I
to
was
make
like,
it a
what?
whole
girl
thing when she's
scar.
And right,
right.
and they made it a whole
Kind of like when
thing.
they had somebody, they have a scar. Like, look, she looks so ugly. It's like a random scar.
Right,
It's
Yeah,
and
just
it's
like,
just
yeah,
like a,
she
right.
looked
She's
yeah.
fine.
still, yeah. That's what it was. But yes, with Kate, I think she was trying to be the conflicted, moral person. Like, you
Okay.
realize that she was trying to be that. I
I,
just That's
I'll
just
give you
kind of
that.
what
She
I
probably
think.
was. She went to get the girl out of prison. I mean, I guess she was trying
It just
Oh,
to
that's
redeem
not
right,
what
herself.
and
she
she
But it
was
was
felt.
but it was
No,
her fault that she
she
was in the
That
wasn't
she
prison in
was
the
in
doing
first
there.
what
place.
she
But
right,
felt.
exactly.
Yes.
mhm.
So that's what I'm saying. It's the whole
But she didn't
it's
get
the
it
whole
because she
back and
felt
forth.
bad. She got it so she could help her get Joe.
Joe, you're
Like,
right.
it's
Help
You're right.
her
still
That was
get
If
that.
Joe
Joe.
hadn't gone off the rails, she'd be still in jail.
that's
I mean,
right.
that's true.
Right.
And she wouldn't even thought about it.
She
You're right.
needed somebody to help her get Joe out of jail. And
Hmm.
that's also why we see, too, I think, how they were able to open up this whole montage of past lovers kind
Oh
of thing.
Lord,
So let's talk
it was
about,
horrible.
before we talk about the Lockwoods, let's talk about the women and how, well, I ask y'all because I already have a feeling, but why do you think that, or how did you feel about having a whole montage of past victims slash women and Joe in the cage, and what did we think about all that? Now, I think that was also in one of those episodes, Marcy, that you said should be deleted. I think it's in like episode 7 or something like
Was
that, but I
it?
don't
I thought
remember.
it was 8. I don't know. I got
Okay,
blurry.
maybe
I
it's
thought it was
8.
8.
Maybe it's 8.
It's
Okay.
8 because the fire is 9 and the escape is
Okay.
10. I think it's an 8.
But what did
Seven,
Marcy? What did we
seven.
think?
She's in London trying to convince that girl to come back. I was underwhelmed, and thank you for letting me go because I think my computer might die in any moment. But so I was underwhelmed. They were really just yelling at a man in a cage who didn't feel any remorse for why they were yelling at him, and then they weren't all agreeing about what should happen. It's like they didn't have no game plan before they went in there, and everybody's emotions, and then everybody was yelling, and then shenanigans were ensuing, and then I felt like. I felt like what the moment was supposed to be, it wasn't because by this time the whole show had descended into this level of chaos that
Yeah.
didn't. So I mean, Marianne looks shell loony because she's always hollering at the man, and she doesn't, and you don't
Yes.
really, and you're like, why are you here? I mean, honestly, that's what I thought when I saw her. Was like, why are you here? Like,
Yeah.
what is this? Sisters are
If
doing it
they
for
had like
themselves.
all
What are we
gone in
doing?
and killed him and just
Right.
ate his body, no,
Maybe not the 80s body part. I wasn't
yeah.
going there. But had they all actually definitively decided to do something and had actually all pulled it off, but there was always a weak link. Somebody was. It just got out of hand, and the whole time they were arguing, and he was pulling the key out, and I was like, see, this is why we can't be great, because this
Too
man
many
has a whole
conveniences.
key.
Why? Why?
Yeah.
Why would he
But
do that? He
but
hasn't done it the first 4 seasons. Why does he now think he needs a key in now
Right.
on?
Exactly.
well,
Yeah.
I think for the whole thing, I just like it felt like an intervention. It's like they get all together.
Right.
Like, is this a murder intervention? Because I don't know why they are all together to confront him. He's done killed or tried to kill so many women at this point. It's like, so you're gonna say this is what you did to me, Joe? And it's like, for what? Why would you want to do that? I mean, just either kill him or put him in jail. But we don't all have to come in here and tell him that he's an awful person.
Right.
I mean, you already know he's an awful person. He's done it so
Right.
many times already. What's the point of you confronting him? You could have confronted him as easily in the courtroom if you want to put him in jail, if that's the case.
But this goes with that thing that they always do, and I hate this. When we let the bad guy tell us why he did what he did, I don't care. Like, we already know. Like, I don't need to give you time to talk it out. Dude, kill him. Just get it on with it. Let's just move on. And I feel like, we always do that. And we spend all this time doing that, and then it's never going to be fulfilling to us. But in terms of like the flashbacks I think it was too convenient. So all of a sudden, look, you introduced
Hmm.
what 3, 4, 5 plus new characters in this episode,
Yes.
and with Bronte and her 3 little friends or whatever, and you just made it too convenient. You had to tie her into something, right? So you're like, oh, let's bring back Beck and show all this, stuff that I didn't feel like really ever happened. Y'all just decided this is the last minute. Like, it did not feel
Mm-hmm.
like it was original to the story. It didn't feel like that whoever wrote this felt like that this is where it was going to head all along. So I did not like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think the flashbacks, I call them chicken fights. So if y'all have ever seen like on Family Guy where he fights the chicken, okay, it's a waste of time. That's all it is. It's,
Yeah.
it's, it's put there because they don't have any dialogue and nothing to say. So it's a waste of time. So I feel like sometimes the flashbacks, I feel like they're filler, right? And I get mad because I'm like, it does a disservice to those of us who have been watching the show. I don't need you to flash back to stuff I already seen, so stop doing that. And in this case, flashing back and showing us stuff that I personally did not feel ever actually happened. It was just a matter of trying to be convenient. That's all I feel like it was. You were trying to figure out some way to get Bronte in, and then to get her little friends in and make some. It was a mess, y'all. It was a mess.
Oh my. Yeah. So, Stacy, before I say what I was gonna say, Stacy, what else did you think about the women being brought in? We started talking about it, but
I mean, I just thought it was a waste of time too. I mean, we didn't
yeah.
need to have all of them come up. I mean, it was good to see some of them, but it's good to see him as in I like him as an actress. It
Right,
was not needed for the for
right.
me. It was
I
not
agree.
needed for it
I
for the
Right.
agree.
show or anything like that. I mean, especially Marianne, she wasn't needed at all. And if I was her, if that was real world, I'll be like, y'all catch me like he thinks I'm dead. I'm not coming back to none of this. So I wouldn't have told him anything about him. I wouldn't come to him to tell him anything about how my life is going, how I'm scared for my daughter. He don't need to know none of that. Because now he knows how old my daughter is. I mean, I know he knows, but now he knows
Mm-hmm.
that I'm with her in case he escapes again. Because you've seen him escape
All the
2 times.
time.
Right.
He knows at
Exactly.
least twice. And
Exactly.
so why would you even come to that? Now I can understand the girl who's in jail because this is her time that might have been an obligation to Kate just to get out of jail. Because I mean the fact that she got out of jail so smooth, I was like, 1%, it must be nice because
Right.
to get right out of it. But I wouldn't, if she didn't put any conditions on my release, I mean, like, you can do whatever you want. He thinks I'm still in jail. I'm going to try to build whatever I can right now because I already, her parents had died thinking that she might have killed him because she never said anything, but her boyfriend was dead. I mean, and she got a criminal record. So,
Right.
I mean, unless she was promised me, can I get some money or something to help start my life anew? Then I'll help you out. If you just want me to just help you out just to put him in jail, You put me in jail, you could put me right back in there. If I didn't, I just don't
Right.
see. I didn't see her point of. I could see up to a point, but I wouldn't have gone that far. I was like, well, what do you need me to do? Call somebody? Because I'll stay over here. I'm not coming to go and help
Exactly.
and confront him face to face. He
It's not
knows I know he's a
necessary.
killer.
That's not going to
It's
change
not.
anything. I get maybe clearing my
Right.
name right and getting and turning
Yeah.
him in. That makes sense. But he don't need
Hmm.
to see me. We don't need to have a conversation. That's not
Right.
We don't need to be in the
necessary in
same
my
room,
mind.
same
If
state, same city. We don't
one
need to
of
be any of
them,
that.
if one of them had decided to in the cage, he would be dead. But because we had a committee, he got away. We didn't
Right.
need a committee.
No,
It
Right.
you
didn't
didn't.
add to the solution of the issue, and it really complicated things. And I don't know that by that point in the show we needed that extra level of drama. I mean, unless the whole point of that was to get to the fire. But like I felt like we could have left all the women out, still had Maddie show up, still had Kate have him in the cage, and it still would have made perfectly logical sense without all the. We could have. It could have been one less episode. It was ridiculous.
And I
Yeah.
felt some kind of way because it felt like, and I hate this because I feel like it's a thing that they do for women. They all get together and they're fighting with each other and being, no, I don't want to do this. I'm like, I want them to come in and be like, yeah, we gonna do this and just do it. Like I want to see that
And to do
side of
it.
stuff. I don't want them to. And this is gonna sound horrible, but I don't know a better way. I don't want them to get together and get all female. Like, let's just go in here and do what we came to do. Like,
Hmm.
treat it like a man. Sometimes I want to see that.
Mhm.
And instead, because again, here we have, and I kind of felt that same way when Bronte was talking to that guy and Joe gave her the option to kill him or let him out.
Right.
Hmm.
Even after he told her, I'm basically going to do this to other women again, she let him out. And I was just like, now,
Hmm.
aside from the fact
Right.
that at that point, I don't think she wasn't a killer. So, I mean, that I guess I can understand.
But
But I felt some kind of way about that too, because I was like, here we go. This is why men think they could talk to women this way and appeal to us because our heart is gonna be like, oh, well, he didn't mean it, let him out. And I don't want to keep seeing that. I'm like, it frustrates me. So to see all of them together, fussing and then what's her face crying upstairs and them having to talk together sitting on the floor. Like I was like, what is this crap? It was just again, I didn't like where it was going. I want to read y'all something because I saw this online. It's on the Wikipedia page. Let me see. And I just thought it was so funny. For useless characters. Now, Dominique, and y'all tell me if I'm wrong, but she was what I consider a useless character, and she was Bronte's friend.
Yes.
And so this is what they said about her on Wikipedia, and I had to look because I was like, are we talking about the same person? They said this person, Natasha, plays Dominique, who appears to be an aloof hipster, but is a passionate, clever, fiercely loyal young woman with a wealthy upbringing and a headstrong caretaker among her scrappy artist friends. And I was like, did I miss something? Because
AI
I
wrote
didn't
that.
get nothing. I didn't get
That
none
was Chat
of that out
GPT.
of her.
Because
I
it
was
wasn't
like,
enough.
what?
That
I
was
missed
Chat GPT.
I missed that whole thing. I was like, y'all are giving her way more credit. And I don't mean the actress, I'm talking about the character.
Yeah, the
Way more
character.
credit. And
Yeah.
she was, again, she was
they
just,
got that from the treatment or the casting call or
Yeah.
something because none of that was evident in the show itself. They saw that written somewhere and copied it because they cannot be
That's why I
how they
say.
interpreted her
I
from
say Chat
actual show. No
GPT.
way.
and then
No
her
way.
friend was even worse. And I felt, I'm not going to say what I felt. But anyway, her friend was even less important to it. It could
Yeah.
have just been, if you had to have one, okay, fine, Dominique, and then the guy because his dad was the therapist. Fine, whatever.
Right.
But then the other girl, I don't.
Hmm.
Why?
Yeah,
The other
she was
person,
completely
yeah,
useless,
they were them.
Like
They
if
were
that
a
group
them.
had
except
all,
the end.
it's like
I
if
mean,
that group had all been there.
I guess you just needed her to hold the camera at this point. I mean, I don't people to hold the camera when his head hit the
Tripod.
floor. Like, I mean, that's why I needed her, Dana, because somebody had to hold the camera and somebody had to say, "Oh my God, get the camera." That was it.
I knew it
That
was
was the only
bad
relevant.
when they wanted to go after Joe and all their reasons just didn't make no sense to me. They were like, so you have all these reasons that aren't connected to him at all. Like I get if he was
Hmm.
the one who did, but the ones who have no connection, once in my life somebody mistreated me, so down with Joe. No, I was like,
Right.
really? So the four of y'all gonna be like, no, some Avenger group who gonna no, that it was so unbelievable. But
That's
yeah,
why
when
he
I
was
read
able to
that
walk
about
out the
her,
jail.
oh,
That's why. You're right, Dana, because everything they did seemed crazy. And it seemed to him defending himself, the level of crazy. None of these people had any dog in the fight. And it seemed crazy that they would set him up for this incident, which unfortunately it resulted in this young man's death. But police were like, but
Yeah.
why
and what
did you
did they
do any
think
of
was
this?
gonna happen? By the way, you set it up so that you're trying to catch him in the act. I presume that this is
Hmm.
what the expectation was. And then
I
you
think
you
so.
know he's a murderer because y'all didn't say he murdered everybody in y'all's opinion. So did you think he was just
Hmm.
gonna stop? Is that what y'all were hoping? Like
Right.
I'm not volunteering to be the one to pretend I'm beating up Bronte so
Right.
you could come and like what did y'all think was gonna happen?
Right.
And then when
I,
she
I I
told
think
Bronte,
I think that they thought that because he was getting and for some reason a lot of people think this about social media in general, that once you get caught on social media that everything is just going to halt, life is going to stop, it's just going to be something totally, whatever, a justice is going to be served, like, this is not actual murder that has to be proven in court. Just because you got something on a TikTok video does not mean that instantly somebody is going to jail for life. And that's exactly what happened. That they got him on a TikTok video. That TikTok video got taken down, and he didn't go to jail, at least that time.
yeah, he was out
I
like
mean,
5 seconds later. It's like they went in,
right,
okay, let me take your picture, fingerprint you. Okay, even though everybody across the country saw you murdered a guy on whatever, we're gonna go ahead and let you out because y'all have money and
Right.
lawyers. Like I was like, again, I've never experienced this, but that's not what my expectation is in terms of how things are supposed to go. So it was just like there were too many times, and again, I'm bringing this back to Kate. I think maybe if we saw some, and I wouldn't really want to see this, but maybe like some of the stuff that she was able to get him out of, if I had a better understanding of how she did that, maybe I wouldn't feel like she was just like a waste of, you know,
right.
a
If we
storyline.
actually saw her
If I could see what she did, like
negotiating
what did she do?
something,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Your
if
machinations
Yeah.
there.
So maybe
right,
maybe that could have been. I could be like, she's a boss. I just, I knew it was insinuated that she did stuff, but what she did, I had no idea.
right,
And I'd
There's
be
only like
interested.
one scene that we kind of not saw it, but kind of in passing. She was on the phone, and that was
yep,
it. And that was it. That's the
that was
whole thing
it.
that we saw. That we saw her being that bad boss, but that's how she's getting rid of stuff. But that was just like a few seconds.
Right. I think if she was a guy character, though, we probably would have seen a lot more because we always see a lot more of them acting like a boss and stuff and manipulating stuff and trying to get stuff
And then let's
done.
just be honest, just the way we are and the way, the world is, we would assume even if they didn't show that much that the guy was more boss. I think women have to
Yeah.
prove it more, right? So
Yeah.
I think it made it even harder for me because she didn't really do much in anything. So I think if a guy had even just did what she did, we probably would be led to believe that he was probably just rough all the time, whatever. But unfortunately, with women in the role, I just think, they have to work harder to show that. And I just don't feel like I got that from her.
We will continue this discussion on our next episode. Make sure you're subscribed to Nerdy Romantics Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. and visit nerdyromanticspodcast.com to subscribe to our newsletter, where you can get show notes directly in your inbox. Thank you for listening.